So, good morning, everyone. I'm Fabio Fanari, and I'm the project manager of ProFuture. And also, I'm the pleasure to be the moderator of this session. I will try to do my job without thinking that I'm the project manager of the project, so to be not in my position. So I think this project had two main goals. One was to develop a product that can be presented to the market that were, let's say, attractive for the market with competitive price and properties. And the other one was to bring this product to the market, so to meet the consumer taste, to elaborate strategies of marketing, and also to see which are the legal barriers to bring this sometimes novel foods to the European market. We have seen a first session of presentation where we focus on the first main objective that I just remarked. That was, as I said, the development of products competitive and ready for the market. So we have seen that we worked on the microalgae cultivation, on the development of single-cell protein ingredients and protein isolates, and then in the last presentation also in the integration of these ingredients into foods and feeds. So the question, I think, we will try now in this panel discussion to summarize this first part of the conference. And the main question is, as already Ima also told, how far we are from our objective. So which was the advance that ProFuture provide in this topic. And I would like to start the discussion with a question to Iago, because we have seen different improvements in the microalgae cultivation, both in the energy consumption reduction, in the development of new strains. And I would like to ask you, which do you think are the more interesting to lower the price and continue this challenge of bringing microalgae ingredients in the market? Or if it's a mixture of all these strategies that is better to follow, or a comment from you about these results?
Mike? I think it'll be better. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we have been talking a lot about it in our group for the last at least 10 years since I've been working there, but for the last 25. And to see the development of the sector and of these issues in the last 5 years, it has been quite impressive. Short answer, I think, and I think everybody here would agree, but please feel free to add your contributions as well. It's a combination of things. And number one is to get rid of the electricity costs, unless you are in a place that has very cheap electricity. That can be done via some of the strategies we presented here. Optimization, operational changes in your process to make it more feasible, more efficient. Of course, organisms that can grow faster are more adaptable, have less necessity of cleaning up the facility or breaking down the facility. But there is one issue that came to the world recently, that artificial intelligence, but it's another take and another approach to the issue of automatization. I think automatizing also, it's removing the human resources that you need to run a factory, so the production is very expensive, and in some cases it can be close to 50% of the cost, the production cost, have to do with salaries. Not entering in discussion of if you are going to lose jobs, but a combination of these factors, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And linking with this with the results that you present, we have seen different strains of chlorella and also the Galdieria. And about this, I have a question for Jean-Paul. That you are in contact with different companies of producing microalgae, and you, in first person, are involved in this field. What are the microalgae strains and let's say species that are interesting for future novel food application that you heard from producers that they are interested in going on for this process and they are interested in cultivation of this kind of species?
It's not easy to talk about the future because usually we are wrong, and each time we talk about the future, we can have impressions. So what I know is there are applications as a food for Phaeodactylum, there are applications for Galdieria. I think it's linked to the fact that if you find a fantastic algae, to make a dossier as a novel food will be not easy, but will be natural. So if you have a fantastic product, you will go for a novel food dossier. There is an evolution anyway. You saw that chlorella now, the 6 or 7 or 8 chlorella are food because it was proven that they were eaten before 97. We're going to, I hope, make the same thing with spirulina, maxima, fusiformis, and all of the things this year. So there are trends on that. Now, you could choose also to have a market in the States and making a grass dossier, which is easier. So this is, and there. We think that for microalgae we go to the million. So there is plenty of place to find original and interesting algae.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if there are some questions from the room. If not, okay. Mari, can you bring a microphone?
What you told about the production costs, these are logical in a science or let's say an industrial sector which is new and is still experimenting. But you are rich and you don't know because you have the stock and the stock has a price. And when you put the stock working, this can finance the research from the private sector and it can decrease the costs of the production. So the matter is what kind of stock is this and how many years it exists and what are the conditions that the stock is. Now the markets, it's a simple marketing way to fund, especially in our era where we have ecological ways of thinking. But the standards of the product, I don't know also in what level are they.
The story of the stocks. I just know that there is stocks. It's difficult for me to talk about the economy. Probably you are better than me. I know that there is stocks, and that everything comes back to prices, the cost of productions. If we were talking this morning about the soy, what is the price of the tons? That's very low, and there is a big gap for us. And again, if you want to compete with our raw biomass against the raw biomass of soy, there is a big gap. So that's the reason why we have to put value on this biomass. Otherwise, I cannot answer to that question because this is not my job. Somebody probably in Olivier. I know. Okay.
Olivier Lépine from AlgoSource. Iago, you mentioned the cost of electricity. I would say that one of the main costs is water. We need to deal with water. So one way to decrease costs is to decrease the amount of water in the system. Are you working on this and where are you on this axis?
Thank you. Genuinely, thank you for the remark because that was something, Elena is looking at me right now, that I was not able to fit in the presentation. actually forgot. We tried inside ProFuture water recycling trials that was done at pilot scale at all microalgae. We know that it's common practice in many water-based industry, aquaponics, hydroponics, microalgae falls somewhere in between there, to recycle the water. After a certain amount of cycles, people use the term usually recalcitrant effect. That means there is something in there that it's hindering the growth or collapsing it. Some things that you can bypass with a simple water treatment technologies in your, like activated carbon filtration. But that was something that we did in the ProFuture and needs to be better understood. It seems and sounds like a straightforward thing. Oh, we're just going to recycle the water, clean it. But it's not that straightforward and difficult to change when you have already established process that uses only, let's say, clean water from the local supply. And the same is valid for using, let's say, waste streams that are basically a little bit dirty water. So sometimes we have residual nutrients. That is another possibility as well, and that we have more efforts coming in the last few years at the levels of European projects, cooperations with companies as well. It is an important factor. Thank you for reminding us of that.
So there was a question about the price. So I have one for Ima. And you show that the yield of the protein extraction is, let's say, quite satisfying comparing to the soy in terms of extraction of proteins for kilograms of biomass. But what about the price and your strategies to lower the price and see if also the price can be competitive compared to other protein isolates?
My microphone? Is it fine? Yeah. Well, lowering the price, we are related to the raw material. So actually, if we can get a raw material with low price, it's impossible to produce isolate with good price. That's the first point. So there is a work to do on the raw material, on the entire biomass to reduce the cost. And then the yield, I showed that we had good yield, only for one strain. Actually, it was spirulina. And yes, the yield was comparable. The cost of the extraction was not really high, but this is something that will be presented later, probably. I think that for the moment, the good investment for us for producing protein isolate is really targeting the right strain for the extraction, because we saw that spirulina was adapted for the extraction with sustainable process, but the protein produced were not appealing in terms of color. Probably we can have another strain in the future that is really adapted for the extraction, and in the end we could maybe achieve, a product with the right quality and even acceptable price. But there is work to do, so I think that we should not focus on the strain that are now accepted as food or novel food, but maybe we should go further. And of course, the regulation in the end can be a bottleneck, because already in the project we decided to focus on these 4 strains that are accepted as food. But there are many opportunities outside these strains, and maybe our right strains can be out of this list. So it means that if we find something interesting in the future, we should be aware that we have to finance a novel food dossier. I agree with Jean-Paul, so we can finance something if we think that it's really important and we find the gold in protein isolates, but it's really expensive for the moment. So let's imagine we asked for a price, and if we want to support all the analytical part and the consulting service to achieve the novel food dossier, it's like 300,000 euros. That's quite important for, it's relevant for a small company. So we need to boost the sector. We need some help on this point. I don't want to say that, European Commission or the government has to finance the novel food dossier for all the little companies, and neither that we have to to put all the microalgal strain as food grade strain, but I think that we need some help here. We need that kind of centralization and regulation on this point, so that we will have fair, price for small company. At least we can, I don't know, we can ask European Commission to centralize and fix some certified laboratories for the analysis that are applying right prices, or even select some consulting company that can really help little company as the one of the project to achieve a dossier. And another point that I want to underline is that, when we perform extraction, actually, even if we are starting from a raw material that is accepted as food, our extract is not considered food. So it's really tricky. It's a tricky point. So each new extract, each new protein isolate has to go through the novel food regulation. That is a cost. Last point. If we want to go faster on this point, on this project, on the production of protein isolate, I think we also have a possibility is to use some residue for the current extraction, because in Europe and even out of Europe there are already companies that are extracting high value product from microalgae, high value molecules, and they produce some residue. They are not valorized in most of the case, so we can focus on that residues and try to use them directly as protein sources, or even extract protein and produce protein isolate. But of course, we should take care and analyze the quality of the residue, because sometimes we can have development of flavors in the residue, or increase of microbial charge, or accumulation of toxic compounds. So we need really to analyze the residue case by case if we want to take this direction. Don't know if you have comment about that.
Dario.
Just a brief comment about the costs of a novel food application. Actually, the main costs are related to toxicological study, in my humble experience, whereas consultancy can be much less costly in respect to what you said.
We can ask for other, we learned about that. We will ask for other partnership with consulting company, but that will be good for people that don't have knowledge about this field, to have some suggestion from the European Union or for other organization.
So very quick on that subject of the European Commission helping us, we have tried hard. And we had projects. We asked the European Commission to help us to fill in for 30 algae, and we made a survey with all the members. What are the 30 microalgae that you would like to have as a novel food? And we gave that, and we made the project, and it was very long. It was very long, and we discovered after that the European Commission is terrified. Totally terrified, having to be sued or to go in court with one company saying the algae I want is not here. You are helping companies and not me, and so in that sense they say we do nothing, and they stopped everything. So we're trying in another way to bring this list of algae, but this is very tricky.
Let's say that for the protein isolate or extract or whatever, we will have the same problem again, because accepting algae, the entire algae doesn't mean that the extract or the isolate will be the same, will be accepted. So I agree with the European Commission. We are facilitating someone, but
because you talk about protein, tell that to the people that are selling nanochloropsis, for example.
Comment right there. Can you? Okay.
I'm on the cable. Yes. So about water recycling, there are some microalgae that are known to produce exopolysaccharides and exopolymers that could be challenging to isolate. Could be a solution, for example, to grow first an autotrophic EPS microalgae and then a mixotrophic one with the EPS water remaining.
So I think Iago is the man for this question.
Well, if the person is listening, thank you very much. That's an interesting idea. We're going to write a proposal on it. There are some, of course, some knowledge about the EPS producing microalgae. Some of them, the exopolysaccharides, as the name says, they're carbohydrates, and they have different lengths and compositions. Some of them might be too big to be consumed by microalgae directly. They might require some treatment. They could be also processed by other microorganisms. But I think the starting point is to consider the composition of the exopolysaccharides, known as EPS, and start from that. But certainly, it's a possibility. But not every one of them produce that high amounts of it.
There are two companies in Europe selling EPS as a medical device and selling it.
So that's why people don't treat it. So they're selling it.
Follow-up question from the same person. That is, this follows an agriculture model of rotating crops. Is something in this regard already tried?
I will continue. Let's see if somebody else wants to add. Rotating the species, actually Necton did that as a result of another European project. And they do that also in all microalgae. The seasons change. We're in temperate areas. So it's common practice that they have a winter strain, a summer strain, and that's sometimes a challenge because you would like to have your summer strain growing all year round because maybe your summer strain produces something that it's a high value and very interesting. And that requires modification of the strains, of the process. But this is, I think, kind of common practice. Yeah.
Any other comment? Right there.
No, there are simple questions. We have 25,000 species of algae. Why do you discuss about, are you discussing about 30 only? Because artificial intelligence could assist this on the database we have on the materials. On the raw materials, we have the...
Can you repeat the question, please? We couldn't hear it.
We have 27,000 species of algae. And we gather as humans the 30 because our research doesn't have the funding. Why don't you use artificial intelligence where the Commission can assist you with a database like we have on the raw materials? We have a database of all the raw materials. And as second, you have problems of the costs because you spoke that the CO2 is very expensive. And also the water, somebody mentioned. But there are solutions, circular solutions with the photovoltaics also, where we get methane, which is cheaper, and there are, with pyrolysis, we can divert to CO2. And the CO2 also, we can divert it to methanium and water. But I don't know if these needs feasibility studies. I don't know the costs of your way and the cost of buying the CO2. I don't know this, but there are circular methods to production of CO2.
There are a lot of questions actually. We don't know how many species there is actually, because it depends on which publication you take. If you take Norton, it says 200,000. If you go to the biological stations like Antordon in Napoli or in Roscoff, or my colleagues think we'll go over the million, but this is not published. Michael Gairy was very, very angry, and he says how many species there are. I think he says 35,000 point something. So we don't know exactly, but there are a lot. Now, why we choose this 30? This was a survey. If I would say here, what is the interest for you? Which species you would like to see as a novel food? We make a survey, and with this list, with a poll, and we say, okay, we choose this one. It might be that you choose another because you find that fantastic for an EPS or an exopolysaccharide, something, and this is your story. But we have to be, as EABA or our European Commission, we have to be consensual. Talking about the prices and the CO2 and all of this, this is quite a tricky story. I'm not sure I have the time to talk about, because, and you mentioned that, a culture, a production culture, a medium, is very loaded in a lot of things. A lot of things. You cultivate your algae, and you separate the algae from the water, and I come back to the price after. You separate, and you have a medium with very rich in remaining nitrogen, hormones. That's the reason why if you use the medium, remaining medium, as a biostimulant, it's worked quite well, because you have a lot of things that are still in there. And if you use this medium again to produce again the algae, you bring a signal to your algae that they are in an old medium. And this is very, very, very interesting. This is signaling, and you make a new production, a new volume with an old volume, and the algae, they have the signal that there are a lot. And this is very interesting. There are publications on that. Now going back to the water, and I finish. Our story is a drama, because you pump a lot of water, you move a lot of water, and you get rid of a lot of water to get 1 gram per liter. And this is a real cost.
Okay, thanks for the discussion. I have one final question, just to talk a little bit about the food and feed reformulation. So I will start with Giuseppe, and I would like to know from you which were the challenges that you faced in the project, and which are the things that we should do in the future to see microalgae products in the market, and to see the end of the microalgae product as a niche product for the market.
Of course, to integrate, to feed the microalgae to the food, it depends of the microalgae, as we have seen. If you have a microalgae strain that helps you to integrate by the color, the taste, and the properties to the food, this makes easier to this integration. Okay, this is one thing. Of course, there is the challenge of getting new strains just to help this, and just focus, as Ima told before, focus to the protein, to isolate protein, also focusing to have for the food, the target food. This is two things. And of course, when you say when on what must happen to see the protein coming from microalgae to the food standard, no? As soy protein. Okay, this is, I think, a long way to go. We must follow step by step, just doing these improvements, and make the system, microalgae system, sustainable economically and in all the aspects, and just step by step. But I am positive in this sense. I'm sure that maybe someday will be a source of protein, or it can be a source of protein for food also.
Okay, thank you. Gert, any remark about the feed? Which are your impressions for the future?
Yes, I will be short. I agree indeed with Josep on the protein volumes. It's a dilemma. I mean, we need huge volumes. We are not yet there. We need several new innovation actions to deal with that, to bridge the gap towards practice. But I'm hopeful. What I mean, I'm maybe born too early, but at the end, I see also some possibilities when we include it in low volumes, like for instance the scrimps, where we work with the young, it's fingerlings named, the small ones, where you are really entering a niche market. I think that sounds like music in your ears, Celine. And at the other hand, also for terrestrial animals, but not as protein source, because there is still a lot of functionality there. For instance, antibiotic replacement. We are still looking for a lot of substitutes for antibiotics. And algae, not only microalgae, but also macroalgae can offer a solution over there. And this will allow a higher price, a higher inclusion. But this is another type of project that we need for that. So I'm quite optimistic, but as a protein source, I still have a lot of questions.
Okay, thanks to every member of the panel discussion, and thanks everyone for joining the conference. Now we will continue with the lunch. For the details, Marie, please.
Thank you also, Fabio, and also to the audience for all the interesting questions. We have now about an hour lunch break, so we see you back here at 1:15.